Hey everybody, welcome back to the Jeep Journals, and today, in real time, it's Friday, December 3rd, 2021, and this will not be shown until December 3rd of 2022. This is basically a video account saying that today itself, I finally was allowed to know where my dad is living. I was given his address. So what's interesting about this is on Wednesday of this week itself, I woke up to a dream where I was talking with my grandparents, my grandpa in particular, and I had a couple of my other relatives near me who I asked to stick around while I told my grandpa what was going on in the family, so that they could be basically witnesses to what was going on. They didn't necessarily have to participate, they just had to be witnesses. And in my dream, my cousins agreed to be witnesses, and I told my grandfather that I was not being permitted to know where my father lives, and I was able to identify that if he could ask my aunt, his daughter, where my father is while I'm there, he would realize that someone was not telling a complete truth. Well, in that dream, I had a particular experience with a relative of mine, and you can actually go to my webpage, which is us385.com. US 385 is basically the highway to Big Bend, which is my highway to heaven. So when I reference US 385 and Big Bend, what I'm doing is trying to bring that smile that you just saw me have for you. And so with all of the things that are going on in the family, the interesting quirk is that basically today I learned where my dad is. A couple of days ago, I had a dream where I was discussing this with my grandfather, who in real life has already passed away. In my dream, I don't know the difference. Basically, it wasn't unusual for me to see my grandfather. And in my dream, I was voicing a situation to my grandfather, who then called out my relative right in front of me, while I also noticed that my cousins were starting to sneak off. They were trying to leave the situation so that they didn't have to be witnesses. I woke suddenly, almost like as if I knew that in real time, in some parallel universe, I told my grandfather this information for real. And it was almost like using my voice, I was able to point out the fact that some people were not participating, and worse than that, they were leaving the scene as if they had nothing useful to share. You hear me clearing my throat a lot. There are a lot of subconscious gestures that occur whenever something is trying to be emphasized one way or the other. And so you can interpret it however you want. I'm going to interpret it however I want. And I'm going to continue to clear my throat to try and say, hey, this was really going on. This was really happening with me just a year ago. As we approach yet another holiday season, where I wonder if this time around our fathers have heard what our concerns were. So at this time last year, I was experiencing a similar situation in this same exact family. So it's kind of like a nightmare that is ongoing, and at the same time in my real life, I'm having a pretty great time. I mean, in my real life, minus the family situation, which is getting zero involvement from the people who could have shortened this horrific experience. In this particular segment, what I'm talking about is not just the future, not just the past, not just the current, but how everything is interwoven together. So On Wednesday, I had this dream. On that very same day, the very same person that I'm talking about who was in my dream contacted me, or attempted to. They left a voice message. On the next morning, when I saw that I'd missed their call, I left them a voice message because I wasn't able to get a hold of them in person. I've since left many messages in one format or another for quite a few people who have either not gotten back with me or who are now on very familiar terms with me by this point. So the case is yet to be determined. And the words that come to mind, they're not by mistake. They're just the way they are. So with everything that we've talked about, with everything that we've witnessed on this channel with regard to wildlife, manifestation, fasting. By the way, I only went 6 days into the fast before stopping that. So I went 6 days having only water to consume. I'd lost a good amount of weight, and then basically immediately after that, I just began slowly acclimating back to normal meals, which included everything that anyone else could have been enjoying in this situation. So for some reason, I've recognized that addiction is probably what we're all tied to in some way or another, and there are responsible ways to tend to these addictions. And then there are things that are just flat out addictions that aren't even tended to, whether we're following the rules or not. So anyway, I had this dream the same day I got called by the person who was in the dream, getting called out to their own Father, our Father who art in heaven. In some cases, our grandfather who art in heaven. In some cases, our mother who art in heaven. Whatever it is that we're giving some kind of recognition to in terms of a higher power, we're recognizing a higher power. So whether we want to admit to it or not, if they're not against us, then surely they're for us. And in my world, where I've basically put wildlife, wellness, and conservation on the same page, where I've tried to tie it together with music, and where I've tried to tie it together with all of the law of manifestation type conversations that anyone would care to have, while also incorporating that the words and spelling, like exercising, are very intertwined together. And as we recognize this, we come full circle and we see, hey, I'm understanding what you're talking about. You're talking about all the topics at once. But it's why some people can't hear you. I'll beg to differ and say some people can't hear because they choose to prioritize other information as relevant and important. In this particular case, it took over 1 month to get the address for my father. I've talked for almost long enough for you to understand that this is a scenario that should have not taken this much difficulty to overcome, and yet for some reason it did. If we don't have a lot of people tracking in the same phase and understanding that when people are going through trouble, we could stand to support them, then we're going to continue to have experienced yet another year of frustrations and anxiety and revelations that somehow seem to prove that when some people will leverage witchcraft upon one another, that energy will be returned abundantly in a like manner, especially if the person who's receiving that energy is just allowing it to be, allowing it to pass through and become whatever it might be for the purpose that it was meant to be delivered, just like a venom, for an example. Everything has its place, everything has its role, and we have the responsibility to look out for one another, whether we're dreaming or in reality. When someone asks in a public forum, hey, did anyone else notice the smoke? At that point, maybe we can have averted a major crisis by mitigating the fire that was only just beginning, instead of waiting until the entire household has burned down and been picked apart by those that would formerly call themselves in mixed segments family with the very people that they've taken advantage of. Welcome back to my channel. This is the Jeep Journals. I may or may not have renamed it by the time this airs, but I can tell you, speaking of airing, this has nothing to do with laundry. This has everything to do with an ongoing scenario, painting a picture of all the obstacles that are facing me that I'm basically not even having to face myself. They topple themselves over and over. So have a great day. Thank you so much for everything that you've brought to me, comments-wise, experience-wise. We've helped each other to grow. And that's the thing about this channel. I'm encouraging growth in a positive, respectful, responsible way. And that includes using all of the resources we have right now and all of everything that's being generated in ways that can be sustained. So they can reverberate with one another. Sustain, reverberate, octave. There are all kinds of different words that have to do with music. And in most cases, joy is the thing that is probably fundamental, with a capital F-U-N. So when you think about all of these weird things I'm talking about and how this whole story is interwoven into a basic, we should be planting our own gardens. We should be watching what the insects are feeding on. We should be planting what the insects are feeding on in order to encourage the sustainability of that life that we already have in our own backyards. We should be encouraging one another to experience and enjoy that life that's right in front of our face at any given time. We should be encouraging one another to put down the advertised and sponsored content, put down the packaged items, put down the constant doing the same way that our fathers have done for so long. We should put down and denounce anything that's not serving a purpose to us. And we know what those challenges are. We know that there are certain things that make themselves clear as time goes by. For an example, I continued to get messages while I was telling this story right now. And the messages in some cases are about the fun things that I'm looking forward to doing. And the messages in some cases were about the non-participation that was occurring among even those who continued to try to give me some kind of assistance in the form of not assisting me. The spelling and words of it all are extremely important. The truth is the only thing that'll set you free. Might not set other people free. It might set them to be very angry towards you, because a lot of people are living in a way other than what's true. When we don't recognize the truth from the falsehoods, then basically we're just being governed collectively to follow the ways of our Father. And so if you don't like praying, you probably should like the almost sarcastic way that I reference the Our Father. If you do like praying, you should like the fact that I'm talking about the word in its entirety to begin with. And when I say in its entirety, what I mean is there was no subject that was left out of that publication that some people would renounce or accredit for information that they have, that they believe in. There's nothing that says that there's not also information about the bad things that are happening and how to alleviate and mitigate those situations. There's only the entire truth. With the entire truth, you hold the keys to every single thing that you would ever want in this lifetime. For me, cars and guitars. And I've had my share of cars and guitars. Anything that you could possibly want in this world, especially the worldly items, will come to you like it's attracted to you. Law of attraction. The question is, are we responsibly attracting that which we would have absolutely cherished and cared for and nurtured, or are we not putting any care or consideration into those things that are around us? You see? So as an example, this guitar off to my left, your left, I guess, depending on if this screen is reversed or not when it's aired. When you look at these things, when you understand that this guitar was not playable when I received it, and that I restored it to at least having the ability to be played, when you understand that I try to put things back into order, when you understand that I'm trying to put conversations back into order, when you understand that I'm trying to expose the failure points for what they are, when you understand all of that and how wellness and conservation are something that go hand in hand, then you understand why I fasted for 6 days, why I might fast for longer, why I have fasted for longer, why I've fasted for shorter periods of time, why I've fasted at all. Why the word fasted is making you agitated or interested. Why am I agitated or interested? These deep thoughts have a lot to do with you and your ability to maintain a level of concentration to where you can actually hear, I just found out where my dad is today. I had a long conversation with him by phone after over a month of the phone contact option not even being an option. After over a month of not having even had my dad's address so I could even try to visit him even if I wanted to, which I did. And also the fact that many people remained silent and got up and left and excused themselves from the area instead of participating. When you understand that this is all talking about the same thing, and that I'm not trying to out anyone specifically, because this is happening across the board for families everywhere. This is happening across the entire world right now, like as if the world has transformed from the ability to be able to see to being blind-sighted. When we can't hear each other's words, what's the point? What is there anymore if we're not listening to one another? If we don't care how the next person is doing, what is there in this world? If someone would not care to find a way to improve the shipping probability that your items would be received intact to begin with, what is love? What is peace? Are they the same thing? Are bringing order and completion to things good? Order and completion includes understanding all of the negative characteristics that we can plan for, mitigate, correct, if only we learned how to row together in the same direction. So for everyone who's rowing with me, again, thank you so much for watching this entire journey. Please click like. Don't forget to subscribe. There's someone else out there who's struggling. I know it. I understand it. I feel people, I connect with people all the time about these same subjects. And it's not you. And it's also not me. It's all of us. It's all of us together. Till next time, peace, love, and all that old school stuff. Thanks for watching.